Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. The 2025 UMNO General Assembly is finally taking place after being delayed several times, and it's coming at a pivotal time for the party. So while UMNO has gained cabinet positions as part of the unity government, its alliance with Pakatan Harapan and in particular DAP continues to divide its grassroots. It seems, at least from the outside, that the party is still struggling to define its role, its identity, and its future direction. So can UMNO figure out who it wants to be and who it wants to represent ahead of the next general elections? Well, joining me on the show to discuss this further is Dr Azmil Mohd Tayeb, who is an associate professor at USM's School of Social Sciences. Azmil, great to have you back on the show. It's coming at a time where UMNO is gathering for the General Assembly. So they have cabinet power, but they are weak in terms of electoral legitimacy. What's your read of the party's current position?
First, thanks, Melisa, for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. The way I see UMNO right now, it's divided. It's reminiscent of what happened leading up to GE16 in 2022. We can see how UMNO was divided between the Ismail Sabri faction and Zaid Hamidi faction, right? So one foot inside the government and one foot outside of the government. And I can see the similar dynamics playing out right now. And with someone like Akmal Saleh, who's been threatening to leave UMNO or to take UMNO out and join PAS, for example. Whilst, of course, someone like Zaid Hamidi, who wants to remain within the government, who see more benefit for the party to be inside the government than outside. So it is a party that is divided. As it is not right now.
Right. So when you say reminiscent of the lead up to GE15, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because as we know, famously, UMNO didn't do well in GE15. I do wonder whether UMNO today is clearer about what the party is and who the party is trying to represent.
Yeah, I think the reason for the calls to leave the government, perhaps to join forces with PAS or even run independently, is precisely because they fear what happened in G15 will happen again. Right? Then they were badly defeated by PN when it comes to Malay votes. So they can see that happening. Or might be happening again because there is no sign that the significant numbers of Malay voters or former UMNO supporters who voted for Perikatan Nasional are coming back to the fold. So they don't see any trend of that. These voters are coming back in droves. So it still remain largely the same. So there's a feeling that, yes, I mean, we have to do something here. If not, what happened in G15 will happen again in G16.
Right. So you mentioned Dr. Akmal Saleh's call to leave the government, for UMNO to exit the government. I'm just wondering if UMNO were seriously thinking about joining forces with PAS once again, is Muafakat Nasional, as we saw the previous alliance, is that still a politically viable idea for UMNO? I mean, regardless of what Zaid Hamidi has said, because clearly he wants to remain in the unity government. But for UMNO as a party, is that an idea that has traction, that has support?
It always has support, I think, theoretically or maybe romantically, maybe this romantic idea of getting together for the sake of Malay unity, right? But in reality, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked, and I don't think it will ever work. Simply because these two parties are completely different ideologically. They have different agenda. and they're contesting over similar constituency as well, right? So for the hearts and minds of the Malay voters, especially in the Malay heartlands, um, I don't see them coming together. I mean, we already see that happening in the 1970s, and also more recently during the Muafakat National time, right? So it's as I've said, it is not it's a good idea, especially when you have a common enemy. Nothing gets nothing unites people together than having a common enemy. But then after that, what? So I think the the true test will come in G16, and then we can see. I think it will be more um, divisiveness,
Right.
So especially when it comes to seat allocation and things like that, who has to give way for who. I think that's the real test of the city. But as I say, yeah, as a romantic notion, yes, I think it's a good idea. But
As well, when you say common enemy, are you referring to DAP?
yeah, I think it's a DAP because yeah, I think the for people in UMNO, like certain factions within UMNO believe that it's a liability for UMNO to be associated with DAP by virtue of being in the Madani government.
Mm,
It means that you're part you're on the same boat, right? With your supposed enemy.
right.
So it is seen as a liability, as weighing down the party, especially in getting the Malay voters to come back to UMNO, because so that's hence the call to leave the government, so
Right.
that to dissociate have a complete divorce from DAP.
How do you make sense of this? So UMNO is saying that grassroots are feeling this persistent unease about working with DAP, whereas the DAP voter base are saying DAP, the party, has taken such a minor backseat role in coalition politics. How do we make sense of both voter bases, both grassroots of both parties being very dissatisfied with what each party is doing? How do you make that? How do you square that?
Yeah, I think I mean, this is a result of, I think probably years of this political enmity between the two, especially at the grassroots level. The people, uh, the party rank and files have been indoctrinated. That these are your enemies, and suddenly, because of these decisions of the people at the top, you have to work with these people overnight. It's a really a tough pill to swallow for many, especially the rank and file, right? So yeah, I think for DAP supporters, yes, I mean there's also dissatisfaction because they feel that they deserve more than what they have now, especially considering the how many seats they have in the parliament. They should have more cabinet positions, especially critical portfolios. But And they feel that but of course they see this as a sacrifice that they're making for in order to make this um, coalition works, especially with UMNO, because DAP also realized that you cannot sustain this government without getting the Malay votes as well, and the only way for them to get the Malay votes, at least within this government, is through UMNO. However weak UMNO is right now, but UMNO still, commands, certain segment of the Malay society, maybe as opposed to Amanah or even PKR, probably fared even worse among Malay voters, especially in this, the Malay heartlands. So it's still dependent on UMNO, and then I guess this is a sacrifice that it has to make in order to get at least some of the Malays to support the Madani coalition.
Right, and I'm sure UMNO realizes that they have that leverage as well. What do you think? What do you think is UMNO's most realistic electoral pathway to GE16 at this point in time? And things can change in the future, but from your perspective, Azmil, what do you think is the most realistic one for UMNO?
I think realistically, for the next 2 years, is for UMNO to still remain in the government. Uh, I mean, the worst for me, I mean, from the way I see it, the worst decision is to leave the government right now when GE16 is coming up in 2 years or earlier. So precisely because UMNO's brand of politics has always been in the politics of patronage, developmental style politics, the channeling development money, from the federal government to all this, to their constituencies. That has always been UMNO's brand of politics for many many years. And the only way that it is able to do that is to be part of the government, to have access to government coffers and be able to channel. That's why you see Zaid Hamidi as the minister of the rural development, right? I mean, just because of that. I mean, there's no other reason that he's appointed to that position other than to channel development funding to the Malay heartlands, mostly in the rural and semi-rural areas.
Okay, that's an interesting proposition. Has then UMNO, in the time that it's been in the unity government, I think 3 years, going into 4 years now, has UMNO been successful in translating its access to power, being in the ruling government? Has that translated into rehabilitating its lost voter base?
I don't think so. I think that's why you have this worry amongst UMNO leaders and also rank and file, that not much has changed in the past 3 years, despite channeling the development funds and all these things, the material aspect of it. Because I think there's a loss of confidence, a loss of trust, looking at, because those the same people who were responsible of bringing down UMNO, and they're still around. And you look at people like Zaid Hamidi, for example, who's been recently awarded the NFA status for the 47 charges, and that doesn't bode well for Malay voters who care about corruption, who care about UMNO cleansing itself, because there's no attempt to do as such. So the still the same old. Despite these material benefits, I think there people need more than just that. So I think that to change the perception that UMNO has actually truly reformed itself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the same old, I think is a narrative that I've heard from other commentators as well. I'm just wondering how you think UMNO is faring in solving its leadership renewal problem. Is it? Do you see progress on that front?
I really don't see much progress. I mean, perhaps if Zaid Hamidi ever steps down, maybe that can seen as a small progress, which is long time coming, but replaced by Tokmat maybe, so but it's really difficult because their brand has been so deeply ingrained. The way they do politics is part of their culture, the party culture, the party DNA. It's really difficult to have that. So because any kind of pivot, I think, would risk them losing votes. I mean, and at the expense, like getting new voters, I mean, on the fence voters, I think would risk them losing their long time supporters as well. So you have this talk about the third force, or maybe that kind of maybe pivoting towards that. But I mean, if UMNO does, I mean, because UMNO has a name brand that it has long established and maintained for decades. It's difficult that to be some other things. So that's what people have always associated UMNO with. So it's not an enviable position to be in right now. So if you want to project that the image of reform, at the same time still maintain that you are this grand old party, this name brand recognition. So how do you balance the two?
Right, definitely. Azmil, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Definitely an interesting time for domestic politics here. Dr. Azmil Mohd Tayeb from USM School of Social Sciences there. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about the much delayed 2025 UMNO General Assembly, which began on Wednesday night and is expected to conclude tomorrow night. What are analysts watching for at the General Assembly that could, I guess, indicate what UMNO's strategy is going into GE16. Joining me on the show to explore this further is Dr Syaza Shukri, who is an Associate Professor of Political Science at IIUM. Dr Syaza, good to have you back on the show. Lots of things to discuss about the local political scene. But first of all, I want to start with getting your assessment of the state of UMNO today. I mean, what do you see as UMNO as a party and UMNO as part of the unity government as a coalition partner?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me again. It's not a difficult question. It's difficult because it's hard to read UMNO at this juncture, to be honest. Yes, it has been part of the government for the past 2 years plus now. It feels that it's an opportunity for the party to kind of recalibrate itself, or maybe, I don't know, to find a path towards renewal. But to be honest, I don't get that sense. It feels more as if the party is also buying time by being in government, meaning that still being in power with the resources that they have, in a way just trying to show that they're still here. In a way, it's been a strategy that we've heard for the past few years that, UMNO is here for the sake of the country, for the sake of stability, looking forward to develop the country. But when it comes to larger question of what is the party's own future in terms of what does it wish for the country or for the party itself? How does UMNO view itself? Not just going into GE16, but I'm thinking beyond GE16. So that is where I'm struggling. I feel like the party is so much more reactionary these days. It's trying to survive, basically. UMNO is still trying to survive rather than really carving a new path for it, basically.
Yeah, which is a shame because they're in government, they're in ruling government, they have all this access to power, and yet, as you said, they're buying time, and that's time wasted for it to renew itself, to I guess rehabilitate its voter base. I want to talk to you about UMNO being reactionary, and I really love that word. I think it really encapsulates what's happening with the party right now. What do you make of Dr. Akmal Saleh's call for UMNO to exit the government and to start working with PAS once again? What's your sense?
That's the most popular questions these days, right, on Dr. Akmal. Well, I guess we have to start by saying that the fact that he keeps on making these calls, and in a way, I don't see, what shall we say? Yeah, the president and I guess all the other leaders in UMNO have not really come out strongly against him, shows that they understand that there are support for Akmal's calls for reviving Muafakat Nasional or leaving the government. So in a sense, I don't think that he's working in silo. I think that he represents that voice within the party that in a way they want to say it out loud, but they can't for all the calculations that we know of, that we understand. It's a bit difficult in the sense that I don't know if Akmal has thought this through, in the sense that if UMNO does leave the unity government, or it decides to work with PAS again, let's put it that way, under Muafakat Nasional, what would that dynamic be like? Because as we know, PAS is right now is the biggest Malay-based party in the country. Is UMNO willing to go back into that cooperation where it's seen more as a junior party yet again, and then we saw what happened in 21, 22. Yeah, we saw Dr. Kamal say, if UMNO can work with DAP despite what was said in the past, then UMNO can work with PAS despite what happened a few years back. But I think it's more about that, because both are Malay-based parties. What would be the relationship be like? Because I'm afraid if UMNO works with PAS, it would be the same situation we're seeing now between PAS and Bersatu. So is that the best strategy going forward?
Can we take a pause from UMNO, since you brought up PAS and Bersatu, and take a look at the opposition? I'm quite curious about what's happening on the other side of the aisle, because I'm wondering how significant is the leadership vacuum that's happening in Pakatan Nasional, and does that vacuum bode well for the unity government and UMNO specifically?
Same with what I said with UMNO. I think what is going on right now with PN is that, yes, there's this leadership vacuum, but we still can't deny that not PN, but PAS specifically, just like I mentioned a few minutes earlier, that it is still the biggest Malay party. So even with all of this confusion going around on who's going to lead PN, I have no doubt that if we have an election soon, PAS would still come out on top. The biggest question is what will happen to Bersatu, because as we know, Bersatu depends a lot on its collaboration with PAS under Pakatan Nasional. So it doesn't look good that Bersatu and PAS couldn't figure out who's going to succeed Tan Sri Muhyiddin. But for the average voter, those who are already supporters of PAS, I don't think that's a big issue, in the sense that for PAS voters, again, PAS supporters, Tan Sri Hadi is the leader, so that is put aside. So it's more on Bersatu's side. How are they going to reconcile all of this? And we know all the argument that if PAS puts up its own leader as chair of PN, which is most likely, a lot of people are talking about, they're going to lose support from the moderate Malays and whatnot. Therefore, in parentheses, Bersatu's going to lose, right? So it's not something that PAS worries about, it's something that worries Bersatu. Now, for your question on what this means for the unity government, again, it buys time for Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim. It buys time for the government. So this is the time for them to really come together. We had the reshuffle, the cabinet reshuffle. Okay, so the government should really focus on what they can do now for the people. So having said that, what I'm trying to say is that is actually what matters. What can the government do for the people? Unless they're going to have the election next week or next month, right? They're not going to do that. It's going to be like a year and a half. And who knows what's going to happen there. So with that time period, the focus should not be, PN is crumbling. It should be on, okay, what can the government deliver?
Okay, and on that note then, Dr. Syaza, what signals are you watching for in the UMNO General Assembly that could indicate that UMNO is going to use this time between now and GE16 well? Are there any clues as to where you see the party's future direction leading up to GE16?
I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I'm afraid that's what's going to happen, because what we've seen the past 2 days, I guess, a lot of talk, I guess, especially again from Dr. Akmal, is more on, all these talks about fighting DAP, and just a while today, the president himself this whole thing about Datuk Sri Najib, it comes up again, asking for some kind of leniency from Yang Tuan Agong. So it seems like they are recycling the same old story, the same old, trying to get that emotional support, I guess, from their own support base. So why I said I'm pessimistic, because again, I don't see that discussion of, okay, what's next? I saw something from Wanita talking about political funding act, so that's good. So there are those within the party that are thinking about reforming the image of the party, and with that also what is best for the country. And I also like what Tok Mat said about, the declining support of their supporters, of their voters. Therefore, they have to think of creative ways to win back the support of especially the younger voters. But again, I see it as more talk about, okay, we need to get back their support. But how? What is the new message here? Right? They're talking about digitalization. I'm not saying that's a little bit too late for that, but I think what people are looking for is what is the new message from UMNO. That is what people are waiting and hoping to see, and that is why I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years, basically. And if I may add one more thing, we just had the Sabah polls, and UMNO did not do well there. That also didn't come up much. So what does that say? It shows again that, like I said, is they're going with the same issue that we've heard of for many years already now.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. I appreciate your analysis, Dr. Syaza. Dr. Syaza Shukri from IIUM, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.